Chandra, is that the Phoenix station that wanted in Arizona's family? I
Yes.
know. Okay, okay. Just trying to make sure we were good partners to everybody who contacted us.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. I think especially since we're recording, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm gonna try to just give a little bit of a summary, and then that way we can take questions thereafter. Um, thanks, Andrew. We're just getting started now.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And especially on such short notice. I'm cognizant of that. So I want to begin today by making clear that we are going to try our very, very best to not talk about the facts and circumstances of an open pending criminal case, right? As we always try to stay our very best to the rules, to the ethics rules, to the policies, that you don't comment due to rules 3.6 and 3.8, because we want indeed to have a fair trial someday. It seems like someday is sort of the operative word here right now. So what we are talking about, nonetheless, is the procedural posture of the case, is what lawyers would call it. But we're talking about the order of events, which we will describe as completely abnormal and nothing that anyone's ever seen in decades. And we have checked back decades. No one's ever seen this before. The short version is that on June 30th, there was a series of events in a neighborhood in Midtown, an old 1940s, 1950s neighborhood in Midtown. The first incident occurs at a home where a couple, they are 76 and 78 years old respectively. They are broken into. Thank heavens, it's a 4-generation family. They all live in the same neighborhood. They all rally to support. They are all victims in this case of very serious aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. We could call it gun pointing, and very dramatic and traumatic, rather. The scene progresses over to a small apartment complex, again in the same general Midtown neighborhood, where in an attempt to steal a car, the suspect then, the same suspect from the elderly couple's home, then allegedly in attempting to steal the car, shoots and kills a man just short of turning 70 years old, one of our local residents. All of these facts are alleged. They are publicly documented in both a state criminal complaint from our office, and then some of that is written out in a federal criminal complaint, and all of this has already been reported in the news. None of that is new, and we're sticking to just what is publicly known, again, to drive that point home. What we can talk about, and what is wildly abnormal, it is what happens next with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and those are the federal prosecutors in the District of Arizona. Arizona is one federal district, and so they have offices in Tucson and Phoenix, and I think Flagstaff. As Pima County Attorney's Office is responding normally to the case, we have a victim advocate that went out that night to serve our community and serve the victims who had suffered grievous harm. And in the days that followed, we were acting in normal accordance, reviewing the investigation and preparing for first-degree murder charges and 6 additional counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and then more charges about the gun itself and the car attempt to be stolen. And while the suspect was hospitalized from injuries sustained during his events, while hospitalized, the normal course was expected, which is that he is to go to the Pima County Jail after he's medically released and to be booked there to again answer for first-degree murder charges and 6 counts of 6 more victims of aggravated assault of a gun pointing. In fact, as we've said, the Tucson Police Department put out a press release that said exactly that. He'll be medically released and then he'll be brought to the Pima County Jail. But to be clear, and the sheriff wants me to make abundantly clear, he was never booked into the Pima County Jail. He was never in the sheriff's custody. Instead, he was taken early morning, in the dark of night. He was taken by federal agents from the hospital and taken out of county to a federal detention center up in Florence, Arizona. Chandra is handing me some paperwork. Oh, she's handing me the timeline so that I don't have to have everything memorized. And Chandra, thank you. And importantly, you are in possession of the timeline, and we need to rely on that, because a lot of, critical thinking and very careful thinking by a team of brilliant people, helped get that just as right as we humanly could. So we should all rely on that. And obviously, if you don't have it and are not in possession of it, please let Chandra know right away. So the suspect is taken out of county to Florence, Arizona, and into federal custody. This was alarming because it was abnormal. It's not how these things work ever. And not only that, one of our victims put it colloquially. One of our victims said, "Possession is 9/10 of the law." And when we lose custody to the feds, it can be incredibly hard to get the person back and to proceed. We were trying to warn the feds that it needed to go in the direction of the state first and the federal government later, because once we had their criminal complaint in hand, their criminal complaint is about a carjacking. It's about a carjacking with use of a firearm. And then it's about possession of that firearm. I think by implication, you can imply that the deceased victim who was in the car with the carjacking, with the attempt to steal that car, he is implied as a victim, but none of the other people that I've described are counted in that federal case at all. And so when the federal government assured us that we would be able to proceed on our case, even though they took custody of him unexpectedly, they were still telling us we could have him for hearings until last night. And then last night they said the decision has been made that he will not be given to us for anything other than an initial appearance. That we're not going to do the preliminary hearing that we need to do to preserve the testimony of a 76 and 78-year-old victim, that we're not going to do that, and we're not going to do any hearings other than an initial appearance here in state court. Again, I can't, it's hard to articulate my thoughts on that. It's hard to articulate decades of experience in here and their shock in hearing that. I'm in constant contact with our Attorney General, who has expressed complete disbelief. I have consulted with previous U.S. attorneys who have run that office, and it's unheard of, at least locally. And it contradicts the normal cooperation we have always enjoyed up until last week on a different case involving Border Patrol agents and a vehicular rollover. So it's both new and concerning, and certainly it came time to start speaking up for the victims that are completely unaccounted for. To the extent that I find this to be alarming, I know our community will feel this alarming too. This new federal administration said that they were going to go after aliens with a criminal background, people who had caused harm in our community and who should be removed immediately and have no authority to be here. And that was something that voters got behind and agreed to. Never did they tell us that they were going to deprive local residents of justice, that we were going to look at this 4-generation family and let them go unaccounted for and deprive them of their day in court in order to have this gentleman be a part of a new federal operation and to go forward with a carjacking and to ignore first-degree murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon charges and victims' rights and victims' needs. I think that's probably a summary that fully gets us started, and I can take whatever questions you might have.
Hey, this is Steven Sarabia with Arizona's Family. Just have a few questions. So just to clarify, you guys can't charge this person with murder at this time.
We have absolutely a criminal complaint, and it follows the press release that you got. The 2 complaints follow our state level complaint and their federal written complaint, so that you can review and compare what we have and what they have. So to be clear, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to avoid the answer. Ours is first-degree murder, 6 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. I think it's 14 counts total that you'll read there, more counts to do with the gun and the whole incident at the house, right? That's not even spoken for in the federal written complaint. And again, if anybody is missing any of that, just let us know.
Is there also a worry that this guy may be deported before he can even answer for these potential crimes?
The 4-generation family literally voiced that concern before even I could. I think they recognized him for who he might be, and literally voiced that concern. And that's when a lot of people started saying, the involved people were expressing concerns about making sure he did not get deported before he had to answer to our community for his actions.
And do you
Just
feel
going
like
over
this?
this.
Oh,
This
sorry.
is JD Wallace with 13 News. We've spoken with Ricky Miller, the victim's son, and while last week he was concerned about this deportation and the federal government taking Aguirre and possibly deporting him, he has since spoken with the U.S. attorney. He would like to see death for Aguirre. He said now that he is comfortable with the feds having him because of that. He knows that you will not pursue the death penalty for Aguirre when you prosecute this. And while these federal charges do not have anything like first-degree murder in them yet, he still is comfortable with the federal government having him now and prosecuting him, and he's confident they'll pursue more charges. Is it in your release, you used his statements from last week, and his sentiment has changed since then. Does it seem a bit disingenuous to be presenting him this way now?
No, I spoke with him, not at all. I spoke with him again, and he's made clear to me that the feds have hinted at the death penalty, and that will be an interesting legal analysis that's definitely not in writing in any of the communications from the U.S. Attorney's Office yet. And if someone finds a way to make that happen someday, that is something that the deceased son has voiced an interest in, and I fully support his feelings on that. But he made clear to me again that that he wants justice for everyone. This is a strong, good person, right? This is a person who just lost his father, and yet he is saying simply that the normal course should continue to happen where we both can prosecute, because there's this entire family and all of his dad's neighbors, and none of them are contemplated or have any access to justice as written now over in federal court, or as anyone can lawfully imagine. And he's expressing concern and compassion for them as well. That is such an extraordinary story here. The other really great thing, JD, is that because this is so complex and novel and abnormal and never heard of, absolutely everything, all of the communications between the state and feds are in writing. so that we can make sure exactly what's actually happening, and we can handle wild rumors about what's not at all happening. And I know, unfortunately, Ricky is complaining that he's already dealing with just what he called bonkers rumors about our sincere efforts here.
Laura, Tim Stellar here. Can I ask you a question?
Sure, Tim.
So is your idea that that the federal government, the U.S. Attorney's Office, doesn't have the laws or a solid legal approach to charge these other crimes that you can under state law?
Here's what I can say right now. I am reading what they have written, right? It's you know, like anything, and perhaps in particular with this current federal administration, it's really important to go with what's in writing and what's actually happening, and not what's being said or claimed or promised. And so I'm going with what's in writing. They have apparently told the deceased son that they have big dreams about what they might be able to bootstrap into a federal case, and I will let them proceed with whatever they can proceed. And I had made that promise to them that while he's at the Pima County Jail, you can take him in and out for your hearings, and that's the way things have always happened traditionally. What I will say is that it is very rare that that office handles homicide cases. It's called a federal nexus, but it's easy to understand when we think of, God forbid, a Border Patrol agent is killed in the line of duty. That's a federal case. God forbid, as happened here, a sitting federal judge is killed and a sitting US Congresswoman is grievously injured. That is a federal case. The last time the US Attorney's Office here, known to me, took a street level shooting in a neighborhood investigated by TPD is called the Western Hills case. And that homicide occurred a little over a decade, as I have heard, and is still pending now. We do homicides over here, sadly, as routine course. The homicide experts are here in this office. They are highly skilled. They have been ratcheting up major convictions on high profile cases. This is what they do. And that's part of my concern in being interfered with and told, you stop your first degree murder case while we go do something else for an undescribed length of time.
Can I follow up on the process regarding removing this inmate from the hospital? So would the normal process have been that, what would the normal process have been if this hadn't happened, where the federal agents took him to Florence or wherever you said he went? Would it just have been to wait till morning and then the TPD or the deputies take him to Pima County Jail?
Yeah, there are a number of reasons why any person arrested with a crime may have to go to the hospital first for minor things and major things, and then they need to be medically cleared. I mean, this is routine and happens, most days of the week, and then they are transported and booked into the Pima County Jail, and that is just the routine that happens. And I was unsurprised that it was mentioned in the Tucson Police Department press release that once he's medically cleared, he will be taken to the Pima County Jail. So the fact that he is now in a federal detention center is what's not in the norm.
Laura, hey, it's Eric Fink from Channel 4. Can you hear me?
I sure can, Eric. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for taking some time. So we just got a response from the U.S. Attorney's Office here, the District of Arizona, and that email to us says, our office has a significant federal interest in this matter. The press release from the Pima County Attorney mischaracterizes the situation However, we have no intent to engage in an exchange with the county attorney via the media. So I wonder, Laura, what's your response to that?
Yeah, so they took custody of a first-degree murder suspect. They don't have charges against an entire four-generation family. Those people have victims' rights that are very clearly laid out under the Arizona Bill of Victims' Rights. That I am obligated to proceed with their case. And once the feds told us in writing last night that we would not be allowed to have any hearings indefinitely, that's not something that I can abide. That kind of interference into the popularly elected official running this office, tasked with prosecuting homicides and aggravated assault charges, I cannot abide that kind of interference. That's not something I can just agree to. And I feel so confident this is not at all what our community would want. I mean, this kind of disruption of justice was never advertised, was never warned to any of us that this was going to be part of their immigration policy. It has just turned everything on its head, and the community's not going to stand for it.
Laura, Andrew Christensen here from KGUN 9 News. I was wondering, what kind of a culture does this create between PCAO and the federal government, and what are your next steps in terms of that conversation with them?
Yeah, it's unheard of. I getting that email last night, because look, this all started on June 30th. So, and you all know my level of patience, my efforts at diplomacy. So I don't even know what the date is. I think we're on day 10 or 11 of every possible movement of diplomacy that I could possibly figure out. We will lend him to you for anything you want, and we'll put it in writing. Okay, you've taken custody, but you'll give him back to us so we can do our hearings, right? Okay, you want to do your thing first, but what we definitely need to do is to just bring the 76 and 78-year-old victims into court and preserve their testimony. I mean, you understand we can't wait years for that. And once we got the word last night that that your request is denied, well, it's not a request. These people have states' rights. This isn't a request. This is something we're going to have to duke out in federal court. I will not be giving up, and I also won't be covering for them or anyone when it comes to the community. I'm not going to let this four-generation family suffer in silence and give up and tell them, oh well, this is unheard of, and I'm hoping the courts will agree.
When you say you're going to duke it out in federal court, are you willing to take the federal government to court over this? Is that what you?
We are exploring all of our legal options about how to override the decision not to give us any access to him, because it guts our case. It guts all of our movements here, and so we will be asking a court to review that decision.
Hey, Laura, this is Sean Mahoney with 13 News. You talked earlier about you're wanting for justice for all these families within the eyes of the law, right? And one of the things that we had mentioned earlier was regarding the victim's son, Ricky, and his wanting for the death penalty and being okay with the federal government taking over on that basis. Like we said, there's still no charges yet brought up on that, but you mentioned addressing some of the rumors that had come about it, and some of those reports that we had gotten was regarding the charge of first-degree murder and the possibility of a plea deal on this level. Was that something that you were considering? I know you had said you were against the death penalty in any of these cases, but were you intending to carry out the first-degree murder charge to the fullest extent of the law?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sean. In my first 4 years, I did a good job, I think, of just trying to take in just absolutely absurd, bizarre you know, as Ricky said, bonkers. You know, when Ricky got that report that Laura was trying to plead the case already, you know, on day 6, a first-degree murder, you know, he called it bonkers. And I'm gonna be facing just bizarre, absurd rumors like that more directly, and asking a lot of you, you know, asking you to pause and think about the last 4 years and how, you know, certainly Tim has complained many times that I'm too slow, not that I'm too fast, you know, and we developed a phrase here that we get things right and not rushed. And so, you know, I don't ever make promises to victims. And I worry whether that's happening here. And I don't do that because people are grieving and you can't make promises because you cannot control the future. But what Ricky knows and what the community knows is that we take first-degree murders to trial all the time. You know, Clements, Dervish. I mean, look at the number that we have recently. When it needs to go to trial, it goes to trial, and that's a decision that's made by the entire homicide panel quite some time from now. In the ordinary course, a year or so, we're about at the 9-month to year mark. With this development, I have no idea what year it will be as it stands now when the state will finally look at this. But I appreciate Ricky calling that out for what it was, and I appreciate all of you doing your research and being suspicious when something sounds just so far-fetched. Thank you for asking about that, Sean. Is there anyone else who hasn't had a chance? Take a moment. I'm fine. Well, I appreciate this again. You guys came in at short notice, and I appreciate it. I think that's something you have to push back when something so abnormal is occurring, and when it has the potential to cause so much harm to people who live in your community. And you're obligated to stand up to that. I'm on the receiving end. I didn't make any of these decisions about charging and moving him out of county, and you know, I didn't make any of these decisions, but I'm going to respond, and I'm going to stand up for our local people. Grief is not to be exploited for political gain. Every time I see grief exploited for political gain, I am empowered and powered up to fight back and to try to make things right. Thank you all for your attention. I sure appreciate it.
Laura, one more quick, sorry, this is Sean Mahoney with 13. One more quick, just logistical question. Can you tell us which federal agency ordered the suspect to be transferred to federal custody? Do you know that?
You know, we can look back at the record, but I don't even think specificities like that are being shared. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.